Introduction to Duke Wen. Waiting for thousands of years on the Naihe Bridge is ultimately a dream. Is rebirth after dissipation a prank on fate or an end to love? An accident that occurred during a trip led them to meet again. But things are different, and we can't recognize each other anymore. Chapter 1, Mist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What kind of road are you leading? Are you trying to kill us all? Between heaven and earth, there is a vast expanse of white, and a thick mist almost covers all the light. Looking from top to bottom, it feels like being in the clouds, with no visible edge at all. But it was at such a mysterious and dangerous moment that the atmosphere was suddenly disrupted by a roar. Fang Yun, please calm down first. Li Xiaoxiao raised his hands and tightly pressed the shoulder of the girl in front of him to prevent her from making any extreme moves. How can I stay calm? We've been circling here for a long time and can't get out. If we keep going like this, it's getting dark. The girl struggled a few times and pushed Li Xiaoxiao away. Alright, Fang Yun, shouting and yelling can't solve the problem. Let's think about what to do first. Another voice came from the mist, as the line of sight was obstructed, making it impossible to see the person's face clearly. This is an exploration team that loves traveling, with a total of 7 people, and Li Xiaoxiao is their captain. 7 people were trapped in the fog, surrounded by a desolate environment where they couldn't find their way out. They didn't expect such consequences before coming, otherwise they would definitely cancel the trip. And all of this starts from a week ago. Li Xiaoxiao, a young unemployed woman who has just graduated from college. She and her childhood friend Ho Xiaojun, who were naturally adventurous, created such an exploration team. On that day a week ago, Li Xiaoxiao, as usual, locked himself in his room and kept typing on the keyboard, searching for interesting places in various parts of China. But she searched for several hours, her eyes turning sour, but still couldn't find a satisfactory target. And at this moment, a text message happened to come from her childhood friend. Li Xiaoxiao only glanced, then turned off the computer, picked up his phone, and hurriedly ran out of the house. Yuhe village has over 100 households with a population of over 1,000. Li Xiaoxiao and his family live in an old-fashioned mansion located in the center of the village. Previously, there were more than 10 households in this courtyard, but now more than half of them have been moved away. Apart from Li Xiaoxiao and Ho Xiaojun, there are only some elderly people left. Ho Xiaojun's house is right across from theirs. As soon as Li Xiaoxiao ran out, he saw him standing under the eaves of his own house waving to her. "Monkey, where is the interesting thing you said?" Li Xiaoxiao didn't talk nonsense to him either. After walking over, he directly entered the topic. Ho Xiaojun scratched his head and thought for a while before saying, "I'm not really sure, I just stumbled upon it by chance. That place is said to be very desolate, but in recent years, there will always be some exploration teams similar to us visiting, and maybe by the time we go, we'll have lost our original mystery." "How did you find out?" "I've been searching online for a long time, but I haven't seen anything useful. I've been really bored lately, and my work hasn't settled yet. If I stay at home all day, I'll definitely suffocate." Li Xiaoxiao stood beside Ho Xiaojun, looking up at the blue sky. Suddenly, he felt that every day since graduating from college had been quite confused. "Well, I naturally have my own channel." Ho Xiaojun smiled mysteriously before asking Li Xiaoxiao, "What do you think? Do you want to invite everyone to take a look together?" After pondering for a long time, Li Xiaoxiao nodded and said, "It's possible to go, but first of all, I need to know what's in that place. A desolate place can attract many people, so there must be something special about it." Upon hearing these words, Ho Xiaojun opened his mouth, seemingly trying to say something, but he didn't know where to start. "Monkey, do you have any information on hand? After all, you should first study and research carefully, right?" Li Xiaoxiao stared at Ho Xiaojun, wanting to read something from his face. "I'm not sure about the specific location of that place, but I have a map." As for what's special about it, I heard that there is a village in the barren mountains, which is very mysterious and has not been inhabited for a long time. However, after decades of time, there is no sign of collapse in the house. Don't you want to go see such a magical place? Don't you want to explore its mysteries? Aren't you really curious? To be honest, Ho Xiaojun's words can be considered as touching Li Xiaoxiao's heart. Two people who grew up together have no better understanding of each other's habits and personalities than anyone else. So Li Xiaoxiao said, "Take me to take a look at that map, and then tell me specifically about the clues you have." Ho Xiaojun nodded and took Li Xiaoxiao into his own home. Your height of 1.87 meters has already surpassed the door beam. Have you ever considered raising it a bit? Watching Ho Xiaojun only lower his head to enter his own door, Li Xiaoxiao couldn't help but joke. It's really quite troublesome, growing too tall is also a kind of annoyance. Really? But why can't I hear any sense of distress from you? You come with me. The monkey wisely didn't discuss that topic anymore, but walked into his room with Li Xiaoxiao. He picked up a notebook from the computer desk, flipped to a certain page, and then handed it to Li Xiaoxiao. Li Xiaoxiao took the notebook, and the information recorded on that page was what Ho Xiaojun had found. After looking through it from beginning to end and confirming that there was no particularly serious danger, Li Xiaoxiao decisively decided to set off next week. Led by Li Xiaoxiao and guided by Ho Xiaojun, a group of 7 rushed to the destination of this trip. Yongsheng village. But what they never expected was that an accident like fog would happen halfway through. As they were about to find the deserted village, Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net suddenly saw a vast white mist around them at a critical moment, which became increasingly dense and quickly trapped them all. Unable to find the way to leave, nor the path to move forward, can only hover and circle in place. Among the 7 people, Su Fangyun, who had the most urgent temper, jumped out first. He also began to blame Ho Xiaojun for leading the way. As the captain, Li Xiaoxiao naturally needs to reconcile their relationship first. She first tugged at Su Fangyun and then said to Ho Xiaowan, "Continuing like this is not a solution. We need to think about how to deal with the current situation first." Ho Xiaojun pinched his chin, thought for a long time, and then shook his head. "Forget it." Li Xiaoxiao sighed and said to the crowd, "You have also seen this situation now. It is absolutely not allowed for any unpleasant things to happen in this situation. Let's first give a count and confirm if everyone is there." Li Xiaoxiao did this just to be on the safe side, but unexpectedly, something really happened. She stood in the center of everyone and began to call the roll. Ho Xiaojun. In. Su Fangyun. In. Looking King. In. Fong Teng. In. Meng Jinza. In. Bai Su Su. The wind whistled in my ears, but the person didn't respond to me. Li Xiaoxiao's eyebrows twitched, and she shouted the name again, Bai Su Su. Still without a response, she looked up and scanned around, only to realize that one of them was missing. That girl named Bai Su Su is missing. Chapter 2, Footsteps. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dum. 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 A few crows flew over from mid-air, adding a touch of strangeness to the already gloomy environment. The door of the second-floor small building was pushed open, and a young man wearing a gray robe walked out. His eyes were deep and expressionless, and his gaze eventually lingered in a certain direction. The surroundings were shrouded in mist, leaving only this small area clean and empty. The man lifted his steps and slowly walked into the mist. This phenomenon is really strange, as if there is an invisible barrier blocking the invasion of fog. The most prominent feature is the stone tablet that the man passed by before entering the foggy area, on which 3 bright red characters were written. Yongsheng Village. Suddenly realizing that the exploration team with one missing person was tightly leaning against each other, they no longer dared to wander around casually, fearing that they would be the next to scatter. What should we do, Xiao Xiao? Where should we go to find Sister Susu? Lu Qingqing tugged at Li Xiaoxiao's hem. As the youngest member of the team, she would always seek help from her brothers and sisters whenever something happened. Li Xiaoxiao did not give an answer. She had been observing around and didn't know if it was a psychological effect. She always felt that there was a hidden crisis everywhere. We definitely can't leave Su Su alone, we must go find him. Meng Jinze was the first to step forward. He is Bai Susu's boyfriend. Although he is usually timid, he definitely won't be a shrinking turtle in critical moments. You definitely have to search, but do you know where to go? As soon as Su Fangyun, who had the loudest voice, spoke, she interrupted Li Xiaoxiao's thoughts. I don't know, but I definitely won't waste time here. This wilderness is always alone. What if I encounter danger? Meng Jinze wanted to charge forward as he spoke, but was pulled back by Fong Teng. A's, don't be impulsive. Don't lose yourself when you can't find Su Su. Lao Fong is right, you must remain calm at this time. Ho Xiaojun also quickly grabbed Meng Jinze. I certainly know not to be impulsive and to remain calm. But if this continues, Su Su, what if Su Su is in danger? Meng Jinze broke free from the hands of Fong Teng and Ho Xiaojun, and turned his gaze to Li Xiaoxiao. At this moment, he really wanted the captain to think of a way for him. Upon receiving a look of help, Li Xiaoxiao sighed. In fact, she didn't think of any good methods, after all, this was unexpected. But Meng Jinze is right. We cannot waste time here. What should we do if there is any danger? With this in mind, she said to everyone, in this situation, it's best not to part ways because it's easy to get separated. But our companions must definitely be found back, so I came up with the dumbest method. Li Xiaoxiao took off his backpack and took out a bundle of ropes from inside. Everyone takes out the ropes from their bodies, connects them together, and ties them around their bodies. This way, as long as the ropes continue, we can find each other's positions. 6 people took out 3 bundles of ropes, connected them together, and handed them over to Lu Qingqing and Fong Teng. You two stay in place, and the 4 of us divide into 3 paths to search for Su Su. If something happens here, you pull the rope, and we will come back immediately upon receiving the message. Similarly, if you encounter any trouble while searching, you also need to pull the rope so that others can come over and help in a timely manner. Li Xiaoxiao first asked everyone to test the quality of the rope, and then tied one end to himself. Ho Xiaojun and Meng Jinze each took a rope, while Li Xiaoxiao and Su Fangyun walked together. Fong Teng and Lu Qingqing sat down with a nearby stone, tightly holding one end of the 3 ropes tied together. They looked anxiously at the figures gradually disappearing into the mist. Su Su. By Su Su. Su Fangyun shouted out her companion's name in her loud voice, hoping that the other person was really just wandering away, rather than encountering something worse. Li Xiaoxiao tried to see the surrounding environment clearly, but the increasingly thick fog was really blocking all view. What should we do, Xiaoxiao? If the fog gets bigger and bigger, we won't even be able to see the ground clearly later. How can we find people? Su Fangyun has a quick temper, and it's already rare for her to have a complete outburst in this situation. Let's take a closer look ahead, maybe we're almost there. Li Xiaoxiao was also very anxious in her heart, but she knew very well that being impatient could not solve the problem at all, and may even affect her thinking. The 2 of them just kept walking, and suddenly, Li Xiaoxiao stopped in his tracks. She stood with Su Fangyun, even though they were the only 2 of them, there seemed to be 3 different footsteps. What's going on? Did you find someone? Su Huangyun also stopped and looked around, but did not find the person she was looking for. I could only look at Li Xiaoxiao with a puzzled gaze. Did you hear any extra footsteps just now? Li Xiaoxiao's expression was somewhat solemn, so there shouldn't be any more surprises in this result. There's no extra footsteps, did you hear me wrong? Here's just the two of us. Su Fengyun became even more puzzled. Is that right? Li Xiaoxiao frowned and said, maybe I heard you wrong. Let's keep going. The two of them took a few more steps forward, and Li Xiaoxiao stopped again. This time, she could hear very clearly, and behind the two of them, there was a footsteps. With a fierce turn of the head, there was a vast expanse of white behind, and nothing could be seen. Xiaoxiao, don't scare me. Su Fengyun learned from Li Xiaoxiao's appearance and turned her head to look behind her, clearly without anything. Are you sure you didn't hear anything? After Li Xiaoxiao finished speaking, he suddenly shuddered and developed goosebumps all over his body. Su Fengyun was scared by her. Although I didn't hear any extra footsteps, fear is something that can be contagious. So for no reason, she feels a bit cold now. Li Xiaoxiao calmed her emotions for a moment. She didn't know who was following behind her. I don't know what the other party's purpose is either. But no matter what, UU reading www.uukeangshu.net has come to this point and there is absolutely no possibility of turning back. So the two of them continued to move forward, but as they walked, Li Xiaoxiao felt something was wrong again. Just now there was an extra sound of footsteps, but now only her footsteps are left. Li Xiaoxiao suddenly stopped and turned his head to see that Su Fengyun, who should have been standing behind him, was missing. Her eyes slowly widened. A big living person, how could it be said that if she didn't see it, she would disappear? You were standing behind me just now. This time, Li Xiaoxiao was really a bit scared. He tried to pull the rope tied around his waist, but was surprised to find that the rope had broken. Done. What should we do now? My companion has disappeared, and I don't know how to go back. Of course, it is also possible that in the eyes of other companions, she went missing. Although scared, I have no choice but to stand still. Thinking of this, she casually picked a direction and prepared to try her luck. But even though this year is not my zodiac year, I don't know why it's so unlucky. I haven't taken a few steps yet, and I don't know what I stumbled over, so I stumbled and fell to the ground. Damn it. She struggled to get up from the ground. She was originally going to see what had tripped her just now, but to her surprise, one side of her head made an unexpected discovery. Su. There is a person lying on the ground not far away, judging from their body shape, it seems to be Bai Su. Li Xiaoxiao couldn't be certain either, so he could only tentatively take a few steps forward and try to see the other person's appearance clearly. Su. At the moment she saw her face again, she could finally confirm that the person in front of her was Bai Su. Chapter 3, Falling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Su lay motionless on the ground, her eyes tightly closed, as if she had cut off her vitality. After confirming that he didn't mistake the person, Li Xiaoxiao immediately ran over. Nervously extended a finger and probed the other person's breath. Sigh. Take a deep breath, fortunately just fall into a coma. Su. Li Xiaoxiao forcefully helped Bai Su up from the ground, gently shaking her body. After an unknown amount of time, the other party finally reacted. The tightly closed eyes slowly opened, and Bai Su turned her head to look at Li Xiaoxiao with some difficulty. Her expression was confused, as if she had not figured out her current situation yet. Su, you finally woke up. Seeing that his companion was fine, Li Xiaoxiao's big stone in his heart finally fell halfway. Xiao, what's wrong with me? Where are we? Bai Su raised her hand and rubbed her eyes, but the surroundings were still white and the visibility did not exceed 1 or 2 meters. What else do I want to ask you? Why did you get separated from us while walking? Everyone is now looking for you separately, but fortunately you're okay, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Li Xiaoxiao supported her and slowly stood up from the ground. Now that the rope is broken, it's probably not that easy to go back. I don't know either. At first, I did follow behind you, and I could still see Qingqing's back clearly. But it seemed like someone lightly patted my shoulder and turned my head, only to find nothing. But when I turned back, you were all gone. I thought it was the moment when I stopped, and you walked away, so I ran forward for a while, trying to catch up with you. But I ran for more than a minute and still didn't see you. It wasn't until then that I started to be afraid. As for what happened afterwards, I can't remember clearly. I only know that something seems to be chasing me. I ran desperately, and then it seems like I fainted. Bai Susu held her head and tried hard to recall, but still couldn't fully remember everything. Although Bai Susu did not explain the process of the matter clearly, even a little bit is enough to make people feel uneasy. When we gather together, because there are many people, we can at least feel a little more secure. But now there are only 2 girls in their 20s left. What should they do if something really happens? Li Xiaoxiao tugged at the rope on his body and suddenly had no idea. Xiao, what about the others? Shouldn't we go find them now? Bai Susu stared at Li Xiaoxiao. For some unknown reason, she always felt like she had something extra on her body. I also know I should go find them, but the question is, where are we going to find them? Li Xiaoxiao rubbed her temples and felt a slight headache. Didn't you prepare well when you came out to find me? Bai Susu widened her eyes, somewhat puzzled. How could that be? We each tied a rope around us, but now the rope is broken, and I don't know why it broke. We can't find our way back, so if we walk around recklessly, we may go further and further. What should we do now? Bai Susu was originally the most stable character among the 7 people, but today I don't know what's going on. All I know is to urge Li Xiaoxiao to come up with a solution. I don't know, but we absolutely can't sit here and wait for death. Just find a rough direction and take a walk. Li Xiaoxiao looked up at the sky obscured by the fog. Although he couldn't see it clearly, he inferred from the light that the sun was about to set. At the thought of this, both girls had a tacit understanding and chose to walk in the same direction. At first, the 2 of them were walking side by side, but as they walked, Bai Susu fell behind Li Xiaoxiao. Susu, what's wrong with you? You're just dawdling, why did you run behind? Li Xiaoxiao stopped and turned her head to look at her companion with a puzzled gaze. Just a glance at it, he was instantly stunned. Bai Susu's expression became very eerie, her mouth curled up, outlining a seductive curve. And those originally clear and gentle eyes, at this moment, 80% of them are white. Subconsciously taking a few steps back, Li Xiaoxiao's eyes widened and he couldn't believe what he saw. Su. She let out a probing cry, but the other person didn't respond, just stood facing her with that terrifying expression. What's wrong with you, Su? Don't scare me. Li Xiaoxiao was very worried about her, but he didn't dare to approach her at all. At this time, there is clearly something wrong with Bai Susu, so it's better to be careful. Just because she didn't move doesn't mean the other person didn't move. Bai Susu still smiled eerily, her feet seemed heavy, and every step she took made her body tremble. She took a step forward, while Li Xiaoxiao took a step back, maintaining a certain distance between the 2, but continuing like this is not a solution. Just like this, keep retreating, suddenly, Li Xiaoxiao's feet are empty. Because all her attention was focused on Bai Susu, she didn't look at the road behind her, which led to the current tragedy. When a person falls, their instinctive reaction is to grab things around them, hoping to have good luck and a support point. But unfortunately, Li Xiaoxiao's luck was not good. She grabbed an empty space with both hands and fell directly into the depths. Bai Susu stopped and tilted her head to look at the dry well in front of her, emitting a burst of giggling laughter. The place where Li Xiaoxiao fell was a well that had completely dried up, and its mouth was almost level with the ground. Now, due to the heavy fog, it was indeed easy to fall if not paid attention. Bai Susu's strange laughter reached Li Xiaoxiao's ears. It was simply a man's voice. It was not until then that she dared to be certain that her companion had been possessed by a ghost. But this is not the issue she should be concerned about now. Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net, because she is in dire straits, how can she care about others? The feeling of weightlessness made her feel very uncomfortable. At this moment, she really wants to tell those who choose to jump off a building and commit suicide that this is not a good option. This dry well may seem very deep, but there will always be a time to the end. Li Xiaoxiao understands that the deeper she goes, the less likely she is to survive. Perhaps she will have to explain it here today. At the last moment of her life, she remembered that she seemed to have a lot of things to do. His parents worked hard to raise him and finally trained him to graduate from university, but he didn't repay him yet, so it was ruined. I have never had a boyfriend, never been in a relationship, and my life is not yet complete. If I just die like this, it would be really unfair. Thinking about it, I suddenly felt that my sense of weightlessness had disappeared. The first thought in my mind is whether I have already reached the end. But on second thought, I realized it was not right. Except for a slight dizziness and feeling nauseous, there was no pain in any other part of her body, and she should not have been injured. Suddenly opening his eyes, the surroundings were pitch black. There is only a little light far above the head, and I guess it should be the wellhead. Moving her body, Li Xiaoxiao was surprised to find herself floating in mid-air. She didn't fall, there should be 1 or 2 meters above the ground. But this phenomenon is really strange, I just stopped halfway there. It's just a little bit late. If I were 1 step later, your fate would probably be very unpleasant. As soon as a lukewarm voice came from a certain direction, Li Xiaoxiao turned his head and looked over, only to see a young man in a grey long shirt standing not far from him. He held a candlestick in his hand, and the faint flames illuminated most of the bottom of the well. Chapter 4, Chen Wen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Xiaoxiao struggled a lot to get up from the ground. But it may be because the fear has not subsided, and only by leaning against the wall can one maintain a standing posture. The young man put the candlestick in his hand aside, slowly approached Li Xiaoxiao, and handed him a water bag. Thank you. Thank you. I only realized how low my voice was when I spoke, and the hand that reached out to catch the water was still trembling incessantly. The man didn't react much. After Li Xiaoxiao finished drinking the water, he turned around and walked back to the candlestick. How do you feel? Can you walk around? He picked up the candlestick again from the ground and looked at Li Xiaoxiao, his tone still flat, but his eyes were very gentle. Li Xiaoxiao only then had the energy to look at the person in front of him. How to say it? This man is very handsome. On the surface, he looks very young, but he always gives her a feeling that she has experienced countless storms and snows. Although wearing a grey robe, his hair is very short. She has an illusion that she seems to see people returning from crossing the Republic of China. Li Xiaoxiao felt that there was an aura in this man that she had never felt in anyone else before. Although not domineering, it can give people a very strong feeling. What? Can't you walk yet? The man saw that she remained silent for a long time, just staring at him with a slightly puzzled expression on his face. Upon hearing the man's voice, Li Xiaoxiao suddenly realized that he was a bit brazen. She has seen many handsome guys, but the person in front of her is very special. Leaving aside the rest, the fact that the other person can stop falling is beyond her cognitive range. I should be able to leave now, thank you. Li Xiaoxiao slowly lifted his body off the wall, but his legs went limp uncontrollably and almost fell back to the ground. Be careful. 5 fingers pressed against her shoulder, preventing her from making intimate contact with the earth again. How about I help you leave? The man looked at her and hesitated to speak. Are there any other exits here? Li Xiaoxiao looked up and couldn't see the white dot anymore. Yes. The dry well you fell from is connected to a dry well in Yongsheng village, so the other exit is right there. Yongsheng village. Li Xiaoxiao didn't hear the second half of the man's sentence clearly because she was already attracted by the 3 words, Yongsheng village. Isn't their ultimate goal here the eternal village? I didn't expect to be bumped into by myself so coincidentally. Yes, it's Yongsheng village. The man's reaction to Li Xiaoxiao was not strange, as if she had already anticipated it. Well, sir, what do you call it? Are you a villager of Yongsheng village? But how did I hear that there are no more people in that village? Li Xiaoxiao looked at the young man with a curious expression on his face. My name is Chen Wen and I do live in Yongsheng village. He didn't explain much, just half supported Li Xiaoxiao and walked forward step by step. Upon receiving the answer, Li Xiaoxiao's heart was both excited and curious. Excited because not only did I escape a disaster, but I also met the people of Yongsheng village by chance. Curiosity is curiosity about the person in front of you. If Ho Xiaojuan's investigation is not wrong, then Yongsheng village should be uninhabited. But why does such a young man live there? And how did he manage to stop falling? But this shouldn't be the problem she's thinking about now. She's been saved, but what about her companions? Mr. Chen, up there, I have 6 friends who are trapped in the fog. One of them may have been possessed by evil spirits. I am afraid of her and they may be in danger. Can you think of a way to help them again? Li Xiaoxiao looked at Chen Wen with a hint of pleading in his eyes. I'll take you to a safe place first, and then I'll help you find friends. Chen Wen did not stop, still walking forward calmly. Li Xiaoxiao didn't speak again, but he was willing to lend a helping hand despite his ignorance. This is already very good, so he must know how to stop when he sees something good. I don't know how long I've been walking, but suddenly an upward step appeared in front of me. Above is the exit, let's go. The 2 of them stepped up the steps, walking slower because Li Xiaoxiao's legs were still trembling. After finally seeing a glimmer of light, the 2 finally emerged from the pitch-black tunnel. Blinking hard, a very ordinary village appeared in front of Li Xiaoxiao. If you have to pick out a little difference, it should be too quiet. It's very safe in this village. You can take a break first and I'll go find your friends. Chen Wen handed the candlestick in his hand to Li Xiaoxiao, then turned around and walked towards the mist. Watching the disappearing figure, Li Xiaoxiao always felt a strange feeling in his heart. Where does she seem to have seen this person before? Shaking his head, he threw out all the useless ideas in his mind. Holding the candlestick in his hand, he slowly moved to a relatively clean house and sat down. The sky has started to darken, and she is somewhat worried about the safety of her companions. She believes that Chen Wen must have the ability to take everyone out of the fog, but the premise is that no accidents have occurred before that. At first, there wasn't much feeling, but sitting alone for a long time can create a deep sense of loneliness. It seems that there really isn't anyone else in this village. But this made her have to admire Chen Wen. If it were for him living alone in such a village, surrounded by fog, it wouldn't be long before he would collapse. But he didn't. Not only did he live well, but he was also responsible for rescuing intruders. She doesn't know exactly who Chen Wen is, but she can definitely be extraordinary. People are like this, as long as they are in a sufficiently quiet place, they will start to daydream. The thought of running at lightning speed should be the most easily breakable origin. After much contemplation, she finally focused her attention on the village itself. Feeling that his body had almost recovered, he picked up the candlestick and stood up from the ground. My legs are finally no longer trembling and I can walk normally. Looking around, the sky had completely darkened. Except for the candlestick in her hand, there was only one 2-story building in the entire village emitting faint light. Anyway, Chen Wen told her that it was safe in this village, so she walked towards the shiny house without any worries. Unlike other houses, this 2-story building is filled with a sense of life. He raised his hand and knocked on the door, but there was no response inside. If there is really only Chen Wen living in the village, then this house should be his residence. I pushed the door panel hard and with a creak, it opened directly. The furnishings inside the house are very simple, with a few dozen square meters separated by a bathroom and a small kitchen. There is a 8 Immortals table placed in the center of the hall, surrounded by 8 chairs. And the source of that light is another candlestick on the 8 Immortals table. It is exactly the same as Li Xiaoxiao's, the only difference is that the candlestick on the 8 Immortals table is several times larger. Chapter 5, Ghost Body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tengu, why haven't Xiaoxiao and the others come back yet? Lu Qingqing's hand holding the rope was already soaked in sweat, and as she watched the darkness slowly engulf her surroundings, her heart felt extremely flustered. I think we haven't found the element yet, have we? Fong Ting's tone was uncertain. In fact, he is also very scared, but after all, there is still a girl sitting next to him, so no matter what, he must maintain his surface calmness. Lu Qingqing didn't speak anymore. She tightly grasped the rope in her hand, her eyes lowered, and her face turned a bit pale. Both of them fell into silence, and the surroundings were very quiet, as if they were the only ones left in the world. Da-da-da. The sudden sound of footsteps made Lu Qingqing and Fong Teng instinctively stand up. They looked around cautiously, but couldn't find the source of the sound in the first place. Lu Qingqing grabbed the rope with one hand and grabbed Fong Ting's hem with the other. She nervously asked in a low voice, Tengu, has Xiaoxiao and the others returned? Fong Ting didn't speak, just shook his head. He is not sure either, but he always feels that something is not quite right. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, but strangely, I couldn't see the person making the sound. In this situation, the two are tightly pressed together. Their hearts were pounding incessantly, and their bodies began to tremble. I don't know how long it took, it could have been a few minutes or just a few seconds, and finally Fong Ting saw a black shadow in the mist. It looks like a silhouette, not tall, slightly thin, somewhat like a girl. Why is it just you two? What about the others? The dark figure spoke, and it was indeed a girl's voice. Fong Teng and Lu Qingqing immediately recognized the owner of the voice, but how did she come back alone? Sister Su, is that you? Lu Qingqing looked at the black shadow and nervously asked. Who else can it be if it's not me? Slowly, the approaching shadow finally revealed her true appearance. A face that was not particularly beautiful was somewhat pale, and the corners of the mouth continued to have a shallow curve. His eyes were calm and gentle, with soft black hair falling behind him, and a neat bangs covering his forehead. Wearing a white sportswear on her, she looked a bit loose, making people feel that the girl was very thin at first glance. Why are you two alone? What about the others? Bai Susu raised the previous question again. For some unknown reason, Fong Teng reached out and pulled Lu Qingqing behind him. He looked at Bai Susu at this moment and did not answer her question. Instead, he raised his own question. Susu, why did you get separated from everyone? Bai Susu shrugged and said calmly, I don't quite remember either. It was just a moment of turning my head, and you left without a trace. Fong Teng frowned. The white vegetable in front of me is the same as usual in appearance and temperament, but the biggest problem is that there is no problem. May I ask which person can experience being separated from their peers and walking alone in the fog for most of the day, yet still maintain calmness and composure? Don't say she's just a girl, even a big man wouldn't be so calm. What's wrong? Fong Teng, are you afraid of something? Bai Susu took 2 steps forward, while Fong Teng pulled Lu Qingqing back 2 steps. What's wrong with you? Is there anything scary on me? The curve at the corner of Bai Susu's mouth grew larger and larger, and her entire face gradually twisted. Her eyelids rolled up, her pupils were occupied by a white patch, and her face became even scarier. Sister Susu, Lu Qingqing let out a low cry, and the next second, her mouth was covered. She's not Susu at all. Run quickly, I'll hold her back. Lu Qingqing was a bit scared and silly. She stared straight at Bai Susu at this moment, not knowing what to do. What are you still staring at? Run! Fong Teng pushed her hard and made Lu Qingqing rush out a few meters away. Don't even think of running away, all of you stay here and accompany me. A burst of giggling laughter erupted in Bai Susu's throat, and her voice had changed. It was a middle-aged man. Fong Ting didn't expect it to be like this, and he was also stunned for a moment. And Bai Susu was not just talking, at the same time as her words fell, she had already taken action. Qingqing, run quickly. Fong Ting let out a roar at Lu Qingqing, who was still standing there dumbfounded, and then took the initiative to charge towards Bai Susu. This roar really worked. Lu Qingqing's feet were finally able to move. She glanced at Fong Teng, then looked around at the fog, and finally ran in. And Fong Ting here is simply unable to defeat Bai Susu at this time. She is usually gentle and virtuous, but now her strength has become stronger. Dealing with Fong Teng is simply an easy task. With just one hand, she made the tall boy over 1.8 meters lose his mobility. Stay, none of you can escape. I want to lock everyone up and make their own toys. Bai Susu grabbed Fong Teng's neck with one hand, his expression twisted and crazy, his eyes filled with white eyes making people feel cold. Just as Fong Teng felt about to suffocate, a faint voice suddenly came from the mist. People have humanity, ghosts have ghost ways. Whoever dares to violate them will make you lose your soul. Although the voice was not loud, it seemed to carry some kind of intimidation, which made Bai Susu stop the neck-pinching movement. I didn't kill you, but that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Let go immediately and get out of that girl, otherwise you will bear the consequences. When the sound fell, the hand that was gripping Fong Teng's neck slowly loosened. She took a few steps back and her expression became extremely painful. Fong Teng, who had regained his life, was panting heavily. This is really too risky, almost, I really have to explain myself here. I'll say it again, get out of that girl. Seeing Bai Susu let go of Fong Teng, but didn't take any further action, the person who came seemed angry too. Fong Teng gasped for a long time, finally regaining his energy and being able to turn his head to see the person who saved him. A young man wearing a grey long shirt was standing behind him, with a cold expression and sharp eyes. Just a touch of his gaze made Fong Teng instinctively take a few steps back. Chen Wen took 2 steps forward and stared straight at Bai Susu. If you're obedient, I'm too lazy to take action. With a cold smile, Fong Teng had not seen any action from him yet, and in the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Bai Susu. Chen Wen didn't make too many moves either. He just raised one hand and lightly patted Bai Susu's forehead. Get lost. With a roar, Fong Teng seemed to see a black aura detaching from Bai Susu's body, and he himself fell softly to the ground. Chen Wen did not rush to chase after the escaped black chi, but squatted down to check on Bai Susu's condition. Are you his friend? Come and help me first. Chen Wen turned his head to look at Fong Teng and waved to him. Fong Teng didn't hesitate much and walked over directly. You carry her on your back, and I'll take you to a safe place. Chen Wen stood up and pointed to Bai Susu on the ground, gesturing for Fong Teng to follow suit. Fong Teng nodded and without much effort, put Bai Susu on his back. Chapter 6, Amnesia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Placing the candlestick in his hand on the 8 Immortals table, Li Xiaoxiao felt immense loneliness and solitude in this living room. Although there were 8 chairs placed next to the 8 Immortals table, she was well aware that only Chen Wen lived here. After circling on the first floor, she fixed her gaze on the stairs leading to the 2nd floor. After hesitating for a long time, I didn't go up in the end. Li Xiaoxiao is not someone who enjoys exploring other people's secrets, and she can also restrain her curiosity at will. Although she was eager to know what was on the 2nd floor of this small building, it was someone else's home, and it was not appropriate to explore it casually without the owner. Thinking of this, she returned to the Eight Immortals table again, because she didn't know if these chairs were meant for living people, so she didn't dare to sit casually. I walked to the door and glanced at the sky. It was completely dark. It's been so long, can Chen Wen find Qing in them? Looking at the pitch-black and unusually quiet village, Li Xiaoxiao began to feel anxious. How about I go to the village entrance to take a look? Li Xiaoxiao had just come up with this idea, and before he could even step out, he saw several figures walking towards him not far away. Xiaoxiao sister. Before the person could get close, a familiar voice came over first. Qing. Approaching, Li Xiaoxiao also saw the incoming person clearly. Chen Wen is at the forefront, followed by Lu Qingqing, Fang Teng, and Su Fangyun on his left rear, while Hou Xiaojun and Meng Jinze carrying by Su Su are behind him on his right rear. Great, you're all fine. Li Xiaoxiao breathed a sigh of relief and was thrilled to see everyone reunite. Go ahead first, this girl needs to rest. Chen Wen glanced at Bai Susu, who was still unconscious, and led the group into the small building. As soon as he entered, he walked to the Eight Immortals table and pulled open a chair, gesturing for Meng Jinze to put Bai Susu on top. Meng Jinze followed the instructions and gently helped Bai Susu sit on the chair, then looked at Chen Wen. Everyone gathered around the Eight Immortals table, staring at Chen Wen and the unconscious Bai Susu, wanting to see what would happen next. Chen Wen took out a basin of cold water from the kitchen and placed it on the Eight Immortals table. He then took 3 incense sticks and lit them on the candlestick, and then let the burnt ashes drip into the basin. These 3 fragrances have a significant difference from those commonly found on the market, with a slight tendency towards blood red in both pattern and color. What's even more special is that the burning speed of incense is very fast, and it only took a few seconds to reach the end. After the incense burned out, Chen Wen took out a yellow talisman paper somewhere. Ignite it and sprinkle the burnt ash into the water basin. After finishing all of this, he walked into the bathroom again and brought a scarf. Then she gently wiped Bai Susu's face with this scarf dipped in the water from the basin. Speaking of which, it's also magical. Just after wiping it for less than 2 seconds, the white pigment had a reaction. Her eyelids twitched a few times, her eyes suddenly opened, her pupils trembling fiercely, as if she had not yet escaped from the shock. Su Su. Meng Jinze gently hugged Bai Susu's shoulder, trying to give her enough sense of security. Su Su, it's all right now. Don't be afraid, it's very safe here. Li Xiaoxiao squatted down and reached out to grab Bai Susu's almost feverish palm. She gazed into the other person's eyes and gently comforted them. Receiving Li Xiaoxiao's gaze and feeling the warmth from those around her, Bai Susu finally slowly regained her composure. Upon seeing this scene, Chen Wen couldn't help but nod. He picked up the basin on the Eight Immortals table, turned around, and walked into the kitchen again. You guys take a break first, those chairs can sit on, don't worry. Chen Wen seemed to have guessed the reason why everyone didn't sit down. After all, there was a strange set of black tables and chairs in the center of the hall, so he reminded him. With the permission of the owner, everyone didn't think too much and pulled out chairs one by one, sitting around the Eight Immortals table. Do you still have the things you brought with you? Take out the prepared food. After all this fuss, it's time to replenish your energy. Li Xiaoxiao scanned the crowd, and several of them were already empty-handed. I still have food here, and my backpack has never left my back. Su Fangyun unzipped her backpack and took out bags of food and water inside. Finally, I can eat. I'm almost starving. Hou Xiaojun took a deep breath and was the first to reach out and take a pack of beef jerky. If you're hungry, try this compressed biscuit. 1 piece can hold 2 bowls of rice. Lu Qingqing took out a box of cookies from that pile of things, tore them open, and handed a piece to Hou Xiaojun. The group started eating and chatting, only Li Xiaoxiao stood up alone. She walked to the kitchen door with a bag of dry noodles and looked at the familiar figure that made him feel familiar. "Mr. Chen, would you like to eat with us?" Li Xiaoxiao walked a few steps behind Chen Wen and saw him standing in a daze, still holding the basin in his hand, but there was no more water inside. Chen Wen did not answer Li Xiaoxiao, and it seemed as if he had not heard him, maintaining that posture without moving. "Mr. Chen." Li Xiaoxiao really wanted to raise her hand and pat the other person's arm, but they didn't seem to be familiar with each other yet, so she finally gave up that idea. At this moment, Chen Wen also regained his senses. He put down the basin in his hand and turned his head to look at Li Xiaoxiao. "I have always had a question, have we met somewhere before?" Li Xiaoxiao didn't expect that Chen Wen would suddenly ask himself such a question. If it weren't for her own feelings, one would have doubted whether Chen Wen was going to use this outdated trick to approach her. Li Xiaoxiao's surprised reaction was as expected by Chen Wen. He smiled and said, "I've had this feeling since I first saw you. It's strange, but I just feel like we should have known each other before. I live alone in Yongsheng village, and in fact, I have only spent 2 months here, and I only have these 2 months of memories. As for what happened before, I can't recall anything. At first, I thought we really knew each other, just because I couldn't remember, but judging from your reaction, there shouldn't be any special connection between us. As for that strange feeling, it might just be an illusion." Chen Wen looked at Li Xiaoxiao and really wanted to see through this girl. Li Xiaoxiao opened her mouth and didn't know how to pick up Chen Wen's words. But she still managed to catch the most crucial spot. Chen Wen said that he only lived in Yongsheng village for 2 months, and he only has memories of these 2 months. These few words are quite thought-provoking. With this in mind, she spoke up and asked, "Mr. Chen, have you lost your memory?" Chen Wen nodded and looked at Li Xiaoxiao in front of him, saying, "I don't remember where I came from or where I should go. When I woke up, I was already in this village, and the only thing I remember was my name, Chen Wen." Chapter 7, Yongsheng Village. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The night was heavy and there was no wind around. There was only one 2-story small building in the village, emitting a faint light. Chen Wen arranged for the members of the exploration team to rest on the 2nd floor. To Li Xiaoxiao's surprise, there was no layout on the entire 2nd floor, not a single room in all 4 directions. "I usually rest directly on the 1st floor. If you come today, just make do with laying the floor." Chen Wen placed the small candlestick on the central round table on the 2nd floor, and then he thoughtfully lit a sandalwood stick for everyone to dispel other odors in the room. "It's okay, we were already prepared to camp in the wilderness, so we still brought our sleeping bags." Li Xiaoxiao glanced at Fang Teng and Ho Xiaojun, and the 2 boys immediately ran to the 1st floor and helped them with the things they had brought. Due to an accident in the fog, some things were lost. "Does Mr. Chen have a straw mat or other things that can be laid on the ground?" After Fang Ting took out those sleeping bags one by one, he realized that he and Lu Qingqing were missing. Although there is not even a villager in this village, there are still many daily necessities left behind. Chen Wen walked to the innermost closet, opened the door, and took out a set of bedding from inside. "Are these things all left by the indigenous people?" Li Xiaoxiao was very curious. It was said that no one had lived in this village for many years, but why did the things left behind remain intact? Yes. Almost half of the things in this village are already there. Chen Wen handed the bedding to Lu Qingqing and turned his head to look at Fang Ting with a smile, saying, "I'm sorry, there's only one set of bedding in this room. How about I help you place a house or come with me to the 1st floor to make do with the squeezing?" Fang Teng was taken aback for a moment and asked him to live in an empty house alone. No matter how bold he was, he dared not. So he could only scratch his head with some embarrassment and say, "Then I'll give you a squeeze." Chen Wen nodded and didn't disturb the rest of the others. He directly took Fang Ting back to the 1st floor. Compared to the 2nd floor, the space on the 1st floor is much narrower. At the innermost corner against the wall, there is a wooden single bed placed. Mr. Chen, is this bed also left by previous villagers? Fong Ting's footsteps stopped 1 or 2 meters away from the bed, hesitating whether or not to sleep in another place. This wooden bed is only about 1.2 meters tall, with 2 big men lying on it. It seems a bit too crowded. I made this bed myself. The strangest thing about the whole village is that it's difficult to find a bed in almost all the houses. It's like when the villagers left, they left all the other furniture and only took the bed they slept on. Chen Wen first walked to the bedside, tidied up the bedding, and then glanced at Fong Ting, who was still standing motionless. He smiled and asked, "Why, are you afraid the bed is too small?" Upon receiving Chen Wen's gaze, Fong Ting's face turned slightly red. He scratched his head and awkwardly didn't know how to answer. If it were someone else now, squeezing wouldn't be a big deal, but Fong Ting is a bit different. When he promised to squeeze with Chen Wen just now, it was mainly because he didn't know the size of the bed yet. He regretted it a bit. Why didn't he notice the bed in the corner just now? Just as Fong Ting was scratching his ears and cheeks, feeling lost, a person walked down from the second floor. "I'll give you my sleeping bag and you can go to the second floor to sleep." Ho Xiaojun patted Fong Ting's shoulder and apologetically looked at Chen Wen, saying, "I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. I have to squeeze with you tonight." "It's okay." Chen Wen just smiled, and he didn't ask or think much. Anyway, it would be the same for anyone else. "Thank you, monkey." Fong Ting looked gratefully at Ho Xiaojun and then took his place as he walked up the second floor. 2 big men lying on the same bed are indeed very crowded. Chen Wenche lay on the outside, leaving more than half for Ho Xiaojun, while he only occupied 1/3. Of course, Ho Xiaojun was also lying on his side, his face facing the wall. Although I was very tired, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the wall in front of me with my eyes wide open. Everything encountered in this expedition has exceeded his cognitive range. He, who has always admired science and does not believe in ghosts and gods, has been severely stimulated. When he is with everyone, he can think nothing and doesn't want his friends to see him scared. But now as he lay down, the overly quiet environment made him start recalling everything that had happened. There were many unknowns and fears hidden in the mist. Although he didn't see Bai Susu being possessed, he encountered something else. In order to search for the missing Bai Susu, they divided into 3 paths, and he himself took one of them. But in the end, he still didn't see Bai Susu, and instead met a strange child. The child's facial features were very blurry, and he couldn't see his appearance clearly. He only knew that he wanted me to take him home time and time again. Reason tells him that he must never talk to that child. But that child kept following him like a ghost. No matter how fast he runs or how far he walks, that child always manages to accurately find himself. At that time, he was really scared, surrounded by a vast expanse of white, and it was difficult for him to distinguish direction, but the child seemed unaffected. He played hide and seek with that strange child in the fog until Chen Wen found him with Fong Ting, Lu Qingqing, and the unconscious Bai Susu. Yu reading www.yuukeangshu.net. When he thought of Chen Wen, he shuddered for no reason. According to the information he learned, Yongsheng village has been uninhabited for many years. But if that's the case, where did this young man named Chen Wen come from? Will a person really not collapse after living in such a secluded place for a long time? Ho Xiaojun was lost in thought when a faint voice suddenly came from behind him. "Empty all the stars and gods, don't daydream anymore, so you can fall asleep." Ho Xiaojun can be said to have been instantly scared out of a cold sweat. He was already thinking about some terrifying things, and this sudden sound instantly elevated his fear to another level. He didn't understand how Chen Wen knew he wasn't asleep and was daydreaming. Although both of them left their backs for each other, why is he just like having eyes on the back of his head? Some things you haven't seen before, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. However, for ordinary people like you, it's best not to touch too much and avoid going to dangerous places in the future. If you don't die, you won't die. You must understand this truth. Chen Wen's voice remained faint, and after saying these words, he didn't speak again. Ho Xiaojun really didn't dare to daydream anymore. From the fog to the strange child, to the man beside him, and even the entire eternal village, it was like hiding some undisclosed secret. Both of them closed their eyes and didn't speak anymore. Slowly, the gentle sound of breathing entered Chen Wen's ears. I've been living here for 2 months and haven't been able to figure it out. I don't know who gave you the courage to venture into Eternal Life Village. I really don't know if you should be called brave or foolish. Chapter 8, Crying in the Midnight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the grassy path, Li Xiaoxiao walked aimlessly alone. Her mind was a bit dazed, not sure why she was here, and not sure where she was going. It was very dark and gloomy, and the surroundings were quiet. Apart from my own breathing, I couldn't hear anything. This road seems to have no end, she doesn't know how long she has been walking, in short, it's just out of sight. Slowly, her mind cleared up a bit, and she looked around in the pitch black, unable to see anything. Isn't I in Yongsheng village? Why did I appear here? She was very puzzled in her heart, but she didn't feel afraid, just kept walking forward. I don't know how long it has been, but finally a little light appeared in my field of vision. Although she didn't know what emitted the light, she instinctively wanted to get closer. After walking for a while, the number of light spots gradually increased, and she also knew their source. In front of me was an ordinary village, with lights on every household, looking very lively. Without any hesitation, Li Xiaoxiao walked directly into the village. Perhaps tired or hungry, she wanted to find a family to rest. As she walked and observed around, she gradually discovered something unusual. Although the lights are on from door to door, I can't even see a single person. This strange phenomenon, although Li Xiaoxiao feels very strange at this moment, is just strange. She stopped in front of the nearest small house, looked at the tightly closed door, and raised her hand to knock a few times. May I ask if anyone is present? The room was quiet without any response. Li Xiaoxiao took 2 steps back, and instead of knocking on the door of that house, she turned around and walked towards the other one. This is a 3-story small Western-style building, which can be said to be one of the most magnificent houses in the entire village. But the result was the same as before, no one opened the door for her at all, it felt like there was no one living in the room. What's going on here? Is this actually an empty village? Li Xiaoxiao was very puzzled and didn't know what kind of psychology it was, so she started knocking on doors from door to door. But the results all disappointed her. No one opened the door for her, and she didn't hear anyone's voice. In the end, her footsteps stopped in front of the last house in the village. She hesitated this time. The room in front of me is not very large, there are 2 floors in total, and a small attic is built at the top. There are many reasons why Li Xiaoxiao stopped, one of which is that this house is very old, and it looks a bit out of place with this village. Secondly, the room was pitch black and he didn't light it. If it weren't for Li Xiaoxiao's intentional search, it would have been easy for people to overlook it. Thirdly, and most importantly, even Li Xiaoxiao himself cannot say it. After searching the entire village, she didn't feel any discomfort, she just felt it was very strange. But this room directly made her feel a hint of fear, an immense resistance in her heart, feeling that as long as she approached, something very bad would happen. But just as she hesitated whether to leave, the door to that room slowly opened, and a woman's head poked out. Her skin is very white, and her long black hair almost covers most of her face. When that woman appeared, Li Xiaoxiao's body involuntarily took a few steps back, and she seemed to feel danger in her heart. Are you from outside the village? It's getting dark, hurry in and be careful not to be seen by them. The woman actually spoke first, her voice deep and hoarse, making Li Xiaoxiao feel goosebumps. Don't stand there foolishly, come in quickly, it's dangerous outside. The woman didn't react to Li Xiaoxiao, and she became a bit anxious. Li Xiaoxiao looked at the woman and suddenly felt a bit strange. She clearly wanted to let herself in, but for some reason, that woman seemed unable to leave that room at all. Li Xiaoxiao didn't move, she didn't know what to do next. Rationality tells her to run directly. But there was another voice in her heart, constantly urging her to move forward and enter with that woman. At this moment, Li Xiaoxiao's ears suddenly caught a faint cry. She couldn't describe the sound, but in such an environment, hearing someone crying was already scary enough. "Come in quickly, she's here. If you don't come in again, she'll catch you." The woman inside the door began to become urgent, as if she had made some kind of decision and tentatively stepped out with one foot. After confirming that she could do it, the woman rushed towards Li Xiaoxiao at an astonishing speed. "I'll go." The pupils trembled, and in this situation, the best choice would be to turn her head and run, but Li Xiaoxiao found in despair that she couldn't move anymore. The increasingly clear crying sound seems to be able to manipulate someone's mind. If you listen for a long time, it will give people a feeling of shivering. At the same time as the crying came, she had to deal with the strange woman rushing towards her. However, the woman ultimately did not catch Li Xiaoxiao as she had hoped, because before she approached, Li Xiaoxiao was awakened by the mournful cries. "Open your eyes and suddenly drill out of your sleeping bag." She sat on the ground, her brain hurting a bit, and it took her a long time to finally figure out that she was actually dreaming. "Wait, it's not right. If it's a dream, I should be awake now. Why can I still hear that crying?" Li Xiaoxiao was both surprised and suspicious, she couldn't even distinguish what a dream was and what reality was. Did the crying in that dream just now actually come from reality? Full of doubts, it made her temporarily forget her fear. As she was daydreaming, she was interrupted by a voice coming from downstairs. The crying became louder and louder, mixed with the whispers of women and the laughter of children, as well as the roar of men. Li Xiaoxiao couldn't distinguish whether the crying was male or female. "I don't understand why there are still those noises." She turned her head to look at the people around her, and her companions seemed unaffected by the crying, sleeping soundly one by one. Am I the only one who heard this sound? While still puzzled, she heard the sound of a door opening from the first floor. Driven by curiosity, she picked up her shirt and walked towards the stairs, pinching her hands and feet. She didn't feel scared, she just felt a bit noisy and curious. She doesn't usually have a lot of courage, but she feels particularly safe in this room. When she arrived at the first floor, she saw the door half closed. A few steps forward, she saw Chen Wen standing alone at the door. "Mr. Chen, were you also awakened by this crying?" Upon hearing the sound, Chen Wen's body stiffened first, and then he turned his head to look at Li Xiaoxiao. "Did you wake up from crying?" Chen Wen's expression was somewhat strange, as if he was surprised by Li Xiaoxiao standing here. "Yeah. I just thought it was strange. There was no one in this village, where did the crying come from?" Li Xiaoxiao didn't understand why Chen Wen had that reaction, but she still answered the other person's question. Chapter 9, Dreams and Reality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With his eyes fixed on Li Xiaoxiao in front of him, Chen Wen's expression was somewhat complicated. Being watched so openly by a man would make other women feel uncomfortable, but Li Xiaoxiao didn't feel that way. From the first sight of Chen Wen, she had a sense of familiarity that seemed familiar, but now being stared at by the other person's gaze, her thoughts in her heart were simple. Doubt and confusion. Li Xiaoxiao didn't ask or retreat, just clung in place and maintaining the same posture. About half a minute later, Chen Wen withdrew his gaze and turned to look outside, leaving his back for Li Xiaoxiao. This village claims to be both safe and dangerous, but as long as you stay in this room, there will definitely be no accidents. Before you go to bed, the sandalwood I ordered mixed with some other things. Under normal circumstances, it should be able to ensure that everyone sleeps until dawn without being affected by external factors. But you are an exception, and sandalwood seems to be useless to you. Chen Wen's tone was very plain. After the initial surprise, he seemed to see something now. Upon hearing Chen Wen's explanation, Li Xiaoxiao finally understood why no one except herself was awakened by the crying. Go back to sleep, I'll go out and take a look. Don't run around, stay in this room. Chen Wen gave a warning and then prepared to walk towards the darkness. Wait. Li Xiaoxiao took 2 steps forward, half of her body had already left the room. She had originally intended to call out to Chen Wen, but for some reason, when she saw the darkness outside, her heart trembled for no reason. What's wrong? Is there anything else? Chen Wen turned his head and looked at her in confusion. Li Xiaoxiao took a step back, trying his best to keep his body in the bright light. He hesitated for a long time before asking, Mr. Chen, do you want to check the source of the crying? Can you bring me along? Do you want to go? Chen Wen squinted his eyes, the girl in front of him really made him more and more curious. Before I woke up again, I had a terrifying dream where I heard the crying sound. I'm not sure if it was a crying sound in reality that entered my dream, or if there was really that crying sound in my dream. So I want to confirm, can you bring me with you? Chen Wen first shook his head and then nodded. He was not originally prepared to agree, but for some unknown reason, he eventually changed his mind. I can take you there, but first we need to agree. Don't be too curious, leave this room and don't talk too much. No matter what happens, don't be too far away from me. Follow me and I can take care of you. Li Xiaoxiao nodded decisively. Although she knew there might be danger outside, it was as if something was attracting her in the darkness, and it seemed to pierce through her ability to restrain her curiosity. Seeing Li Xiaoxiao nod, Chen Wen didn't talk anymore. He walked back into the room and went upstairs, took down the small candlestick and handed it to Li Xiaoxiao. Let's go. He casually threw down 2 words and opened the way ahead. Li Xiaoxiao followed Chen Wen out of the 2-story building, and as darkness struck, a sense of oppression that she had never experienced before enveloped her whole body. Don't be afraid, for darkness, the more you fear it, the more terrifying it will become. So first, you need to learn to overcome fear and overcome darkness. Don't think too much, keep up, I won't let anything happen to you. Li Xiaoxiao held the candlestick in his hand and looked at the back figure ahead. Unconsciously, his heart began to accelerate a bit. Looking at Chen Wen and listening to her voice, Li Xiaoxiao felt that half of the suppressed feeling in his heart had disappeared. The two walked in the direction of the crying for a long time, and Li Xiaoxiao suddenly stopped without warning. What's wrong? Chen Wen also stopped in place and turned his head to look at the girl, feeling somewhat puzzled. Li Xiaoxiao raised the candlestick high in her hand, her eyes rolling back and forth in her eyes. She looked around at the buildings, trying to recall the scene in her dream, but gradually it merged into one. The village in my dream is actually Yongsheng village. Looking at those pitch-black houses, it's a stark contrast to my dream. The only thing in common is that no one lives in them, right? What's wrong with you? Chen Wen walked up to Li Xiaoxiao and looked at her, his eyes full of doubts. I'm fine, keep going. Shaking her head, Li Xiaoxiao did not tell Chen Wen what had happened in her dream. She thought it might just be a coincidence. Seeing her unwilling to speak, Chen Wen didn't ask much. However, this time he did not lead the way ahead, but walked shoulder to shoulder with Li Xiaoxiao. The crying in my ears grew closer and closer, and a faint blue flame slowly appeared in my field of vision, looking very eerie and abrupt. The two of them had a clear goal and quickly stopped in front of a house. Seeing this house, Li Xiaoxiao couldn't calm down a bit. A 2-story building with an attic added above it, and a dream scene appeared before us, but it was somewhat different. The village in my dream has lights on from door to door, except for this attic. But reality is the opposite, the whole village is pitch black, except for the faint blue flames appearing here. The crying gradually became mournful, and it was entirely certain that it was coming from that attic. The two of them slowly stepped forward, and Yu reading www.yuukeangshu.net stopped by the half-open door. There are several strange houses in the village, and this is one of them. The crying came from the eldest daughter of this family, and all four of them died here. Chen Wen raised his hand and gently pushed the door open. When he saw the scene inside the room clearly, Li Xiaoxiao's pupils trembled a few times because she saw a woman with a pale face and long black hair draped around her in the deep blue flames. It's really the same as the woman in her dream. After several times, she can't figure out where the dream is and where the reality is. Should we go in together or wait for me outside? Chen Wen turned his head to look at Li Xiaoxiao, wanting to inquire about her decision. Come in with you. Li Xiaoxiao didn't hesitate at all, and she didn't know if it was because she was by Chen Wen's side or for any other reason. She didn't feel scared, at most she felt a bit eerie. Chen Wen nodded and didn't say anything, then walked into the room with his legs up. The interior looks much older than the outside, with spider webs and dust everywhere, and a faint musty smell can be smelled. Glancing around, Li Xiaoxiao finally saw the source of the faint blue flames. Two oil lamps were placed on a black altar, originally red flames, but now they were blue. The woman with long hair draped over her, half kneeling on the ground, seemed unaware of anyone coming in. Still in the same position, motionless. Tell me, what happened? Chen Wen stopped in front of the woman, without using any magic, just standing there can give people an invisible pressure. Upon hearing the sound, the woman slowly lifted her head completely and looked at Chen Wen. The first emotion that appeared in her eyes was actually respect. Chapter 10. The Secret of Yongsheng Village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Xiaoxiao stood behind Chen Wen. She didn't dare to get too close to that woman. She didn't have to think about it, but she knew it was definitely a ghost. If you really weren't afraid, who would believe it? Did he come out to make trouble again? Chen Wen looked up at the ceiling, his gaze somewhat profound and puzzling. The woman who was half kneeling on the ground opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something, but didn't know how to express herself. Chen Wen withdrew his gaze and looked back at the woman. Seeing that she had been unable to speak for a long time, he spoke first. Li Xiaoxiao was already prepared to listen to the story, but who knew that when Chen Wen spoke, she was blinded. For a long time, Li Xiaoxiao couldn't understand a single word. What Chen Wen and the woman are saying can only be guessed by their expressions and actions. Finally, the conversation has come to an end. Chen Wen looked at the ceiling again and asked Li Xiaoxiao, "Do you want to go up and take a look? It will broaden your horizons." Li Xiaoxiao still couldn't react until Chen Wen turned his head to look at her, only then did he know that the other party was asking him. What did you just say? Why can't I understand a single word? This is currently the most curious thing for Li Xiaoxiao. As for whether or not to broaden his horizons, let's put it at the back for now. People speak human language, ghosts speak ghost language, what we just said is called ghost language. Chen Wen answered Li Xiaoxiao's question with his mouth, but his footsteps did not stop. When he finished speaking, he had already walked to the staircase leading to the second floor. Ghost talk. Is there really a ghost talk in this world? Li Xiaoxiao hesitated for a moment before lifting his foot and following over. Of course. If there's a chance, I'll teach you, but it mainly depends on whether you want to learn. The two of them walked leisurely towards the second floor on the wooden staircase, with a faint blue flame illuminating most of the room. Li Xiaoxiao was still puzzled at first, how could the flame from the first floor reach the second floor? Only then did she realize that there were two identical oil lamps on the second floor. The two of them stopped in front of a certain door, and that mournful cry came from within. But ever since they entered this room, the cries kept coming and going, feeling very strange. When I arrived at this village, there were no living people left, but there were several special rooms with lingering obsession, and this family was one of them. From chatting with them, I learned that about 20 years ago, Yongsheng village was not completely abandoned, and their family of 4 were the residents of this village. An accident resulted in the final downfall of the family. There is a couple living in this house with 2 children. My daughter is very beautiful and happened to be just 18 years old when the incident occurred. My son is 8 years younger than my sister and only 10 years old when he left. All of this starts with his son. Yongsheng village is a very mysterious place, and in fact, the villagers in the past were just outsiders. As for where did the indigenous people go here? No one knows what it looks like. Within 10 miles of the village, there is fog, but it doesn't happen every day. There are probably 1 or 2 days a week without it. The reason for the formation of fog has always been a mystery, and even I spent a week finding the eye of the formation. Discovering this is just a superficial understanding. This village is even more complex than we imagine, and its name alone has a deep meaning. I woke up from this village, but I have no idea who I used to be. But I can be certain that I know Taoism and have a deep understanding of metaphysics. Perhaps I used to be a Taoist. He paused, shook his head, and chuckled lightly, saying, "It seems like it's a bit far-fetched. Let's talk back to this family." With a gentle tap, the door that was originally locked opened in front of the 2 of them. Li Xiaoxiao raised the candlestick in his hand and looked into the room through the firelight. "It's messy, that's what I saw at first sight." The furniture in the room was crooked, and various strange toys were thrown on the ground. In the center of the pile of toys, a boy about 10 years old was smiling as he watched the 2 people enter. His skin was as pale as the woman downstairs, with dark eyes that seemed to have no eyeballs at all. Looking away from the boy, Li Xiaoxiao looked deeper into a single bed where a young girl of 17 or 18 years old sat, with 2 lines of blood and tears on her face, looking very cautious. On the wall to the right of the girl, there was a middle-aged man holding a sharp knife with a fierce expression, and his features had already shifted. The crying stopped completely at the moment they pushed the door in, and the girl sitting on the bed was still trembling with her already painful expression. Coupled with those 2 prominent lines of blood and tears, it really made people feel the urge to turn around and escape. Chen Wen saw that Li Xiaoxiao had also entered, so he closed the door with his back hand and watched as the family of 3 continued to discuss the previous topic. Their family used to live a good life, but one day over 20 years ago, the boy picked up a stone statue from outside. The child was curious but lacked safety awareness, so he brought it home just because it looked interesting. However, no one expected that the tragedy started from there. Since the stone statue entered the house, the eldest daughter of the family has been having nightmares every day, and the male owner always experiences various accidents. The hostess began to be plagued by illness, and the only one who was considered normal was the boy. At first, none of them suspected the body of the stone statue, until a month later, the girl was molested by a male teacher at school. The female protagonist fainted inexplicably on the way home from work, and the male protagonist had a concussion from being hit by a heavy object. It was only then that they began to realize that something was wrong. However, it was already too late at that time, and it would be too late for the village gods and Duke Duan to send the stone statue away after they had seen it. No one can explain the specific origin of that stone statue clearly. It's strange that his appearance doesn't seem like a certain evil god, because it's a very ordinary portrait, wearing simple clothes, and looking kind and kind. Who could have predicted? Is it the source of this family's disaster? If we can't send it away, everyone has no choice. The villagers originally planned to go outside and help find someone knowledgeable to take a look, but they didn't expect the final outcome to come so soon. On the way home from school, the girl was held tightly by several thugs, unable to bear the humiliation, and finally chose to cut her wrist and commit suicide. The hostess was tormented by illness and lost hope of survival, and after taking over her daughter, she also committed suicide by cutting her wrist. As for this boy, Chen Wen fixed his gaze on the little boy sitting in the center of the toy, and finally a ripple appeared on his plain expression, unable to say whether it was pity or regret. He was killed by his own biological father. The successive deaths of his daughter and wife dealt a blow to the male protagonist that was not unimaginable. In his view, the stone statue was brought home by his son, and all these disasters were caused by his son. Therefore, the deaths of his sister and mother should also be counted on his head. The man personally killed his own son, and then he chose to commit suicide. From then on, all 4 members of the family were buried at home.